Industry expectations for shorter runs and faster processes are growing. You need a press that will complement your existing offset fleet, boost productivity, and increase your profits. Introducing the HP Indigo 100K Digital Press. The press that's born to run. A breakthrough press generating the highest digital B2 sheet throughput in the market with speeds of 6,000 sheets per hour, with a dynamic 5-source feeder and auto-pallet replacement system. Harness the power of non-stop production. Experience a seamless, automated switchover process for jobs and substrates alike, saving you valuable time and labor. The advanced and automated color measurement system calibrates colors in direct parallel to the printing process. Achieve optimum consistency across all prints, sheet to sheet, job to job, day to day. Designed with offset users in mind, the gripper-to-gripper paper transport provides unparalleled stability and immaculate sheet-to-sheet registration. The HP Indigo 100K is easy to add, intuitive to use, and quick to contribute, all while striking print quality that matches offset look and feel. It recalculates your total cost of ownership and opens up a world of digital opportunities. The HP Indigo 100K Digital Press, born to run.
This is for sure Industry Speaks, and I have the pleasure of, in just a few minutes, actually next 25 minutes, talking to these two gents. We have Andy Pike from HP. Andy, introduce yourself briefly, please.
Thank you. I am the EMEA Marketing Manager here at HP Industrial.
Fantastic. And Anthony, do you need an introduction, or?
Of course I do, Morten. So first of all, great to be at this event. So thanks for having me along. I'm Anthony Thirlby, the owner of Venn Holdings, an acquisition vehicle based in the UK.
Fantastic. Anthony, I have actually decided that I will just go. I will punch you in the face. No, okay. I won't. But I would say that you have almost become like a LinkedIn, at least, phenomenon, because you have, I think at least weekly, you post about last week's performance and how efficient and order size and how well you use the equipment you have, right? Before we are going to talk about OE, and I was just to position you, maybe you can talk a little bit about what is Venn and what is the idea of Venn.
Okay, so OE is a separate conversation in terms of link to Venn. So OE, I had a lot of experience over the years working on behalf of Heidelberg with them and their customer base for several years as a consultant. Lovely phrase, a consultant. You can tell everybody what to do and have no responsibility. Anyway,
amazing, right?
So OE is about time, quality, and speed index is about 100% efficiency is what the maximum capability is. So my focus has always been trying to work with customers, and in my previous life was a real true focus on operating cost per sheet. So going from 100 flights a year to lockdown was a little bit of an interesting process. So we crazily decided to buy 2 printing companies during that process, which had 0 work at the time. So a bit of a difficult process, but I wanted to prove the theory factual in terms of what we would have a strategic element to the business. So the operating cost per sheet aspect is very important to us. So what that allows me to do is to grow a business aggressively into the volume-related market initially. What people get a little bit misconceived about is that this isn't just about manufacturing an output device. A huge part of that perspective is having volume to grow our software architecture. So for me, I'm always trying to make sure that we're anything between 15 to 20% more cost effective per product, because that gives me obviously the internal margin I need to return for all of this investment we make. But secondary has the ability to grow into what I think is the available market in today's commercial print world.
Great. And then I think that everything you say makes sense, of course. I was just one question that I would like to ask, because one thing is having that idea. Another thing is the go-to-market strategy, because obviously this only makes sense if you sell something, right? So what is when you look at your companies, the 2 printing companies that you own under the Venn Holding name, what is the KPI for buying print from you?
I think for us, it's actually, if you look at what COVID taught us generally as a race, is that we wanted the ease of use, ease of transaction. I think print was very much derived from a service-related industry. I think also where that service was delivered from was in high-end value products. The reality is, because of what the quality is in the marketplace from every application, whether it's inkjet, indigo technology or offset, the quality is very much a given now. So for us, in terms of ease of board, in terms of onboard and transition, factual feedback to the consumer, in fact, getting involved in the life cycle of their product to ensure that you're giving them the most cost-effective way to produce. But secondary for us is not being about a transactional printer. So I'm not interested in having 300 customers who give me an order each. For us, it's about building relationships into the supply chain. And then from our software perspective, is then ensuring that on board and in terms of the touch points into the business, that we have our customer base working with us to actually accelerate that product to market. So our USP is about ease of transition and ease of purchase.
So if I'm a customer with you, it's easy for me to buy from you. That's what you say.
If you've got enough volume, yes.
Yeah. So even though a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure that Andy will talk about that in a second, that we talk about the digital transformation in products of one, personalization, low print runs, and that is not the market that you are targeting initially? Or?
Not with the two initial acquisitions, no. They're very much, we've got two faces to market. JDP, which is a technology provider of printed products, and Culverlands is more of what I would say a service-related organisation, very much into the education and the cruises sector. But we're still driving technology in terms of how we actually process those orders through the business. So for us, we are very much into a volume-related product. But what we're trying to drive margin through new product development or from new onboarding and software architecture for the ordering. The next stage of getting into books of one and obviously what that has, I'm very confident that we can ease our way into that market with what we've already built for then.
So that basically means that by having a volume basis, which is often seen as being under pressure margin-wise, you always focus on the most efficient production in order to have a margin on a very competitive market.
Absolutely. My capacity should always work for me, not against me.
Perfect. Andy, I was just about to say that you don't need to introduce HP, and then I was thinking again, because the last time I was in Israel, I met a few of your colleagues, and they asked me, it was just a funny question over dinner, they asked me, so what do you think in the printing industry? Do you think HP or Indigo is the bigger brand? And I was, it's actually quite interesting question, because as we all know, HP is also computers, HP is also cameras, HP is a lot of different things, right? But quite recently, and you also said that in your own introduction, the industrial printing unit or whatever you call it, that actually maybe requires a little bit of an introduction anyway, right?
Sure. So our portfolio at HP is not just industrial when it comes to, not just indigo when it comes to industrial. Page-wide inkjet is something that is a growing market. Simon, who we'll speak to later, he has both technologies, and I think we've seen real synergies where both technologies can complement each other. We talk about book production being one of those, so I think we are seeing efficiencies with our own install base, where we're seeing the two technologies linking together.
But I mean, the reason I'm asking is because if that question was genuine and Indigo versus HP was like two separate companies, I'm pretty sure that Indigo would be a bigger brand in the printing industry than Page-wide or HP, for example. So is this, with all the changes that have been within HP the past years, is that like now we need to consolidate because we can, with our technologies, approach the market from a much broader perspective?
Exactly right. And I think we've seen COVID was a huge accelerator of this, but you've seen huge diversity in terms of what our customers are producing. So we've seen now commercial customers looking into labels, commercial customers and even labels customers looking into flexible packaging, folding carton. And as I say, our portfolio has grown, and one of the key things about being an industrial customer at HP is that if you stand still, you're likely to, hey, things change very quickly. COVID was a huge accelerator of our portfolio as well. And we've seen the market is ever changing. And I think the DNA of HP Industrial is that we do have to keep reinventing. And it's, if we're not, and if, as you said, you've been to Israel, you've seen the R&D that goes into our technology there. It's, it is in our DNA, and I think
100%, yeah. And that leads me to a question, because now we just spoke to Anthony a little bit about how he see his business and how he see the importance of being in. And I was just, it's a little bit of a curiosity, but I was thinking, how is it for a company like HP to work with a company that is so focused on efficiency and maybe to some extent also pushing the boundaries of the suppliers?
Very much so. I'm raising a smile at you there, but no, it's very true. And I think we've seen, we're famous for having high quality and for that varied work, as you say, personalisation. But our technology has evolved, and we're now looking at efficiency and productivity. This is not to say we're leaving that behind, but we're very much seeing companies like JDP who are really pushing the boundaries of what we believed were capable. And as you know, our R&D is now looking at how much digital can grow, and the volumes are increasing. The efficiency of somebody like JDP, really are breaking new barriers.
I think the very first time I spoke to you online, Anthony, this is the first time we meet in person. I think that before we had that webinar, whatever we had at the time, you were kind of introduced to me by our joint friend Jacob, that you were you're very competitive, right? I mean, you were considered maybe the most efficient offset printing company in the world, and the way
I was.
You was not even considered, but you were basically. Yeah.
Now I think that the competitive nature is not that case for me. From rightly or wrongly, I'm a very analytical person. Data has a tendency not to lie. So, from my perspective, in terms of being competitive, it's more of a case of having a competitive sport sort of mindset inside the organisation, continuously improving. From my brief failed background in professional soccer, you soon learn about tactics and strategy and training and that competitive nature. But for me, it's about that, once you get into a growth mindset, it's making sure that there's no boundaries in your way. And one thing, just going back to what you alluded to with Andy, with the relationship we've built with the guys, is whatever you think a machine can do, we'll do more.
But and that was the reason why I was talking about this competitiveness, because I was just thinking that, let's say you have a machine that can do this, and I know that you do it because you want to make money, but that also sometimes stresses a relationship, right?
100%. Yeah. And I think you see your true partnerships through all these, these issues that you have, because growth is not easy. And for me, going back to the issue about OEE and actually retaining this element of throughput, that's how I build a business model. I can't have a 25% variation in my operating costs because of availability of certain machines. So it's not a case of actually being just a competitive aspect, but for me, if my fixed cost asset base is cheaper than my competition and I'm attracting the same price point, then you can do the maths. Yeah.
But the reason I'm asking is because I think it's well known, and I'm not referring to HP in particular, but that when you look at digital technology, it is more fragile. It is still, even though it's an old technology, compared to compared to some of the latest thing, I was just thinking that still, by pushing the boundaries of what the equipment can do, doesn't that make your business a little bit fragile? I mean, because I understand that when it runs, you make money, but when it doesn't run, then you don't make money.
I do, and I think this is the big education for everybody sat in that cut sheet space, is when you come to market, which the guys have to do with a product configuration, it is going to extract work from mature technology like offset, not a problem with that. But the reality is, if you start talking about productivity, then it's a whole different conversation. And for us, the great thing about digital, you have a single cycle speed, regardless of what the mode is, obviously.
Yeah, it always prints.
The thing for me is, okay, how do we understand when it's not printing, what we can do to improve that? Yeah. Because that, to me, is free margin.
And that is where the relationship with HP gets into play, right? Because, I mean, if you have a partner that listens to you, I think that you have been probably more in Israel than many other Indigo customers, because you basically also give a lot of feedback to your vendors in order to improve your productivity.
For me, our supply partners and our equipment providers and our software partners alongside that are more important than customers.
If you run your equipment extremely efficient and the utilization is low, what is the situation then?
I think that's a case of understanding what your product portfolio is, what you're actually driving through, what you want to try and retain is a margin return. I think efficiency is such a defining word sometimes. It doesn't mean, as you say, that you're selling correctly. So for me, efficiency allows us to understand what our sales yield is per sheet. But efficiency and utilization, as you say, if you don't truly understand what it is you're producing, then it can be a quick acceleration to the demise of your company.
But I mean, the reason I'm asking is because if you look at utilization, at least in the offset world, if you have full cost models, are typically based on how much you utilize the machine to have an hourly rate, basically, right?
It is.
And the reason I'm asking is just because, I mean, most businesses need to have some kind of headroom in their production because you have ups and downs during a year.
You do, but I think this is where, as an industry, we've been fortunate because of the margin we've carried over the years. And again, I will relate this to the digital world as well, especially in terms of Indigo. having a second machine as redundancy is not a cost-effective way of producing a product. The offset world has gone through that sort of natural alignment over the last 8 to 10 years. But for me, it's the same thing. My labor cost is the same. The variable cost can be the amount of power that I'm generating to run at what speed, what configuration I'm running the machine in. But for me, if you take it the most simple way, having an X million pound investment on your floor, you shouldn't be doing that if you don't understand truly what yield you want to return out of that. And I think the biggest learning curve when we talk about costing models, any costing model you can make yourself feel great about. You can say, I'm doing 85% recovery. 85% of what?
Yeah.
You go around, most companies are not even measuring what their throughput levels are.
Yep.
So I'm running it at 4,000 hours, so I'm utilizing it. So I think that, as you say, that this is the sort of the contradictory term of what we do as organizations in print. We spend millions and sometimes don't even understand what we return per minute or per hour, which is ludicrous.
And is that also when you consult for other printing companies, is that kind of the lessons that you try to teach them? Or?
Yeah, I never look at the machines at all.
Yeah.
Looking at the machines is secondary. First, sales engagement, onboarding, processes, how many different product configurations they run. Because a printing press will only produce what you feed it. So if you're changing product ranges every 30, 40 minutes, then you're going to be inefficient. And this isn't, people then make the mistake saying, oh, you're an online, you batch. If you think of the most logical thing of any machine setup, you want to produce as much of that product when you're set up in that configuration. And the only reason that you can then drive volume is by accelerating the pre-production process. And this is what I learned working with DFE architecture, Print OS. It's a great system, if you want to call it an ecosystem. But from a DFE submission perspective, we work very closely with a factory about how I can accelerate my customer to print for me. And that's the magical ground for us. From a software perspective, if I can get the customer to push a green button into my machine, then A, my time to market is far quicker than most of my competition. And secondary, my cost of acquisition is negligible.
Andy, did you know Anthony before you sold the 100K to him?
I was not. Well, we knew of Anthony, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, no. When he purchased JDP, at the time they had a 12,000, and now with the 100K, as I said, they've redefined the way the 100K is used in terms of its utilization. And you talked about efficiency, and I think you talked about also his LinkedIn profile, and I think we even showed me your print beat score before we came in here, and I think that's something as well.
Typically Anthony, right?
No, it had to be, when we're sat together, that machine is going to produce its best shift.
Okay.
So I think he stitched up one of my operators to actually put a bit of falsified information in there.
Because you're talking click prices afterwards, right?
Absolutely. But it is, I think this is the other thing, Anthony was able to check on the press, see how efficient, how it's operating today. And this is something I think you'll admit you're addicted to it to see how you're doing, but it's from a efficiency perspective.
Listen, there's many different things. For me, I think we spoke about this before. Social media is fantastic because it makes the world a very effective place, and it's a very accessible place for a lot of people. So I could get 5 to 6 messages a day from people in India, Australia, and believe it or not, I love print. Okay, I said that first and foremost, I love this industry. It's been very good to me, and so by showcasing what the machine is doing, that's for me is a given. Because if it doesn't do what it said it's going to do, then it's a whole different conversation. But I think it's really important that we share as an industry, whatever it is you want to do, that there is opportunity to talk to people who can give a bit of advice, a bit of guidance, but also it's quite lonely running companies. So when you talk to other people about their pressure points, their pain points or opportunities, that for me is far more fulfilling than anything else. Because we all need a bit of a sense check sometimes what we believe the market opportunity is.
Agree, 100%. Interesting conversation by all means. The reason why we're asking you about whether you knew Anthony before was also because I think that, HP is a huge organization. HP has a lot of very skilled people on board. Can you still learn something from a customer as well?
Very much so. In fact, again, we were talking about this earlier today. I think one of the most important things is how quickly we learn from our customers, because it's all well and good us coming up with a product, launching it to the market and expecting it to just fly and be perfect. And I think one of the key things, and again I go back to our R&D team in Israel, we're constantly evolving our products. We don't just bring a product to market and expect that's it. And if you look at the B2 print market, we're now on to, I think it's the third iteration of B2 presses. And not only that, but if you look
And
at
still pretty lonely in that market, right?
a little bit lonely, yeah. We're getting some competition now, but I think the other thing is the advancements in terms of the special inks that we have to offer, the substrates that we can print on, and this is the evolution of our own technology is something that doesn't stand still.
But the reason I was asking was also because, I mean, with the fantastic focus on the OE that Ed speaks about, I mean, did you talk to customers about other customers about OE in the same way as he understands it, or is that also bringing some new topics into the debate with new customers?
It is. I think we learn a lot about efficiency is one thing, and I think we are constantly learning as to all the pain points. Anthony's been very, very honest with us and very vocal with us. It's not just Anthony. We have user groups of our own customers that we invite to Israel to debate with us and tell us what the problems are. And because ultimately, we can test things as much as we like in a facility, but when we actually get the feedback from the field in terms of how can we make this more efficient? How can we make your business run smoother? What are the, even changing, you mentioned changing substrates. If you're using the same substrate every day, it's going to be great. Not everybody does that. We have some customers who are doing a wide variety of work, and they are having different experiences than say Anthony.
Of course.
So
I mean, that is like the beauty of this industry, that what I love the most when I go and visit printing companies is sometimes you see the same type of equipment being utilized in so many different ways. I once interviewed Alan Barchani, and he said to me in the interview, we never intended the Indigo to be printing balloons. And I just think it's a wonderful anecdote about how things are really, technology can be utilized in so many different ways. Gentlemen, it was fantastic talking to you. We have some Q&As from some, actually we have a few questions here. The first question is from Anthony. You will not reveal this, I know this. What is the next investment for you?
If you're
Did you see it? Did you see it?
I saw an order in the pocket. I think we definitely, as I said and alluded to earlier, unfortunately we had an acquisition that fell apart the 11th hour in the year, which would have allowed us to go into the next investment quicker. So yeah, some web-based inkjet technology is definitely high on the radar. I think.
Can I ask you a question? I know it's maybe a little bit inappropriate when we have HP on board, but I'm curious anyway. When you look at acquisitions, I know that when you invested in your Heidelberg machines, you also looked at Koenig & Bauer.
Yep.
When you invest in machines, are you kind of like in a relationship with HP?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But would you also look at others? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be very remiss of me not to look at what is available. But I think when you're looking at cost points and you're looking in terms of all the conversations we've been having of what's important to us,
understanding that the relationship is
imperative.
Thicker than
It's imperative because I could save myself X amount on a click or X amount for an investment. You look at a 3 to 5 year life cycle of trying to get back into the R&D world, trying to get constructive feedback about how we improve the throughput process. As I said earlier, for us, it's, I always want to have a close relationship with people so I can look them in the eye.
And that's funny you mentioned that, because that is what I also experience when I visit printing companies all over the world, that I would have thought that a lot of it was about, can we get the good price? Can we have a good machine? But it's often that how you build relationships that become really essential for your business in not just in the short term, but also in the long term. We got also a question for you, Andy, and this one I also know the answers on. Will the V12 be at Label Expo?
Good question. Yes, it will be. Yes. So as I said, the V12 is our latest label product. It is a huge leap in terms of productivity, much like we were talking about. And yes, it's been long awaited, but we are finally back at an exhibition, a physical exhibition, not here, but in Brussels. And yes, we will have the debut of the V12 in EMEA, which is very exciting.
This week you have a corrugated event in Israel, and last week you introduced the Indigo 200K. The 200K is for the flexible market. That is a market that is also potentially interesting in the Label Expo market. Will you also bring a 200K there?
It's highly likely, yes.
Highly
yes,
likely,
yes.
okay,
No, the 200K is not only flexible, but it can do flexible packaging, but it can do labels as well. So it's a mid-web label press.
Stupid me, I should have known. I actually did know, but I forgot about
It's
it.
good. But yes, no, it's again, it's an evolution of our 25K. It's 30% faster. And again, yes, packaging is a booming market. Digital short-run packaging is, we're going through huge growth. Packaging is sometimes seen as an evil in the world, but using short-run packaging, producing just what you want when you want it, is a huge market for us at the moment. And we see flexible packaging and folding carton as huge growth markets for us at the moment.
Last question for you, Sir Andy, I was just about to say, because this is, maybe we will not be friends after this one. I don't think so. HP obviously have a lot of different printing technologies, and we spoke about this industrial mindset where you combine all the technologies that fits the printing industry, right? In that mix, how do you see inkjet and toner-based product development? I mean, we spoke about some of the competitors are looking into to the B2 format also in inkjet. I know that you can't say anything about that, but I mean, how do you see that mix?
As I say, I think it's about efficiency. It's about producing. It's about what your portfolio is. Now, Anthony's already talked about what markets he's in and what the products that suit his customer base. And I think we're working with our customers to see what markets they need to evolve into. And I think inkjet it's a very different market. There are obviously overlaps. When you speak to Simon later, you can obviously ask him the question.
I will. I promise you. Okay, and with that said, gentlemen, thank you very much. We're just running out of. You see, the time flies by, right? So this is Morten from. I was just about to say, who am I today? I am Morten from Inkies. That's what I'm always, and then I'm also moderating the Industry Expert Speaks. What's it called? Industry Speaks, yeah. At the Printing Expo Online, and it was truly great to talk to you both. Fantastic, actually. And the next session we have is also quite interesting because, again, we have a session this time also with a customer and also Phil Oakley from Cornit. And I think it was great because with this session we had, it's not just about the technology that is being possible to produce, but it's also how it's utilized by the actual printers in the world here. So that was great, and I look forward to that. So let's have a break, and remember to go and visit HP's booth at here at Printing Expo Online. One of my personal favorites is basically to go and see the pouch factory, where you can see both flexible mid-web printing, but also how they can be manufactured afterwards. So go there.
Introducing the Storm HD6 to Hairy Baby has been probably one of the best financial decisions I've made in this business. We were manually printing t-shirts either by screen or by screen transfer print. Very slow process. Takes a lot of hand-eye coordination as well to get it exactly right. With the Storm HD6, you just pop your t-shirt in, send your print across, and it's perfect every time. Once we first saw our design roll off the Storm, we went, that's it, we're sorted here. This is brilliant. The cost per print is fantastic, which allows you to offer a better cost to your end user. Outside of that, it's allowed us to take on any kind of design that somebody hits us with. In the past, somebody might come to you with a 15 color gradient blended design, and you're going, I can't screen this, it's just going to cost far too much money. And I'm not going to give them a transfer. It's a big elaborate print. You don't want a big sheet of plastic on your t-shirt. Having something like the Storm HD6, beautiful smooth print, perfect color every time, everyone's a winner. There's a lot of brands in Ireland who get their t-shirts printed on demand using foreign on-demand companies. This might have proved useful in the past, but most especially since the advent of Brexit, it's made it very, very difficult for Irish brands to get t-shirts imported from abroad. So by having a print-on-demand system here using the Storm HD6, we've now nicely captured that market. Sustainability is also at the core of what we do here at Hairy Baby. The neopigment ink system that Cornit use helps us deliver that full sustainable package. All of our t-shirts are organic cotton and sustainably produced. Our aim actually is to try and remove screen printing completely from our service. Indeed, we'll probably remove transfer printing as well, in favour of a second Corny Storm machine to help us cope with demand.